Hello and welcome to the Basketball Show. I'm Nathan Stremple. I'm very glad to be back this week. Thank you to Dan Ewing filling in the chair last week. A little bit more room behind here without Dan's broad shoulders. But as usual, joined by four-time Olympian Shane the Hammer Hill. How are you, Shane?
Great to be here and good to have you back, mate. We missed you.
Thanks,
Where were
mate.
you in Summer Bay?
Yeah, off camera he's talking about the man crush he has on Dan Ewing. Big thank you to our partners that allow us to be here. Shout out to Unibet, to Alcatel, and also to the Daily Telegraph, all of their sister publications and the news breaking they do. And right here we are at the throwbackstore.com.au. I'm glad you are excited to have me back. You look very good in purple today, the Raptors jersey. Is this because you want everyone, just to remind everyone that you outscored Vince Carter at the Sydney 2000 Olympics?
Oh, only just, but he did get more dunks. But no, Marc Gasol, they won the trade, didn't they?
Well,
did they win all the trades?
A lot happening in basketball at the moment. Trade week in the NBA, NBL finals are almost underway, WNBL grand final happening. Did they win the trade?
I reckon, mate, they're the favourites for the East now, I reckon.
Bucks added some pieces.
They did.
The 76ers added a big piece.
I'm still
Can they play
Toronto.
together? It's a great city,
piece.
Toronto.
Yeah, it is. All right, come on, let's get onto it. Oh, look at that.
That's NBA. We'll come back to a bit of NBA later, as is always the case. I tell you what, Dan Ewing says something and it goes. Brand new hammer. There you go, Dan.
He didn't like the plastic one. And I've brought out the big guns for today.
You don't want to be the one under the hammer today. It is time for Under the Hammer.
This is a big one. And who else could it be? Who would you have under the hammer?
Brisbane haven't looked great lately.
Yeah, Brisbane, you are under the hammer. And I tell you, check this record out. They are 1-3 against Cairns. 1-3. So Cairns are 3-1 against the Brisbane Bullets and 2-21 against the rest of the league. So Brisbane go up there. All they've got to do is virtually win the game and they make the playoffs. The last 2 years. All right, so great opportunity. Team with a whole lot of momentum, and they look like they did not care. They did not give a yelp. Nothing, no passion, no defence, no nothing. And I tell you, Cam Bairstow, you're responsible. 1 point, 0 for 4 for Cam Bairstow. I like him, he's a star, but stars don't have 1 point in big games. Cam Glidden, 4 points, 1 from 8 in 26 minutes. I've said you should be in the Boomer squad, Cam. You need to be able to lift, mate. And Kadee, 4 points, 1 for 2. 2 shot attempts, mate. 3 assists in 18 minutes. Their big guns have to be able to play. Now, there's a lot of question marks about Andre Lamanis. He's had success, made some adjustments, but for me, they were the team that was coming 6 weeks ago. They were the team on a roll with a chance to be able to seriously compete, and they've won 1 game in overtime at home to Illawarra in 6 games.
So confusing what you're saying there. You're not very happy with the Brisbane Bullets. So you're picking them in the title.
They've let their fans down. They've let everybody down in Brisbane. They could, and you know what's worse? They could actually limp in there and still make it with a home win if Adelaide lose. And they get there, and who knows what happened? They'll probably win the first round.
I was going to say, what's remarkable about the NBL is it changes week to week. But for this week, in no uncertain terms, the Brisbane Bullets are under the hammer. Well, Shane Hill has started pretty strongly today, a hammer that you do not want to be under. This is usually the time where we get a little positive and we stroke someone, but you're going to keep going with the strong response as you continue the campaign of #StopTheFlop.
Well, I mean, we have to. We have to when we see it in front of our eyes. I think the guys responded last time when we had that movement. Everyone jumped on board and everyone went away from it. Well, it's creeping back in. And it happened at a massive time. Melbourne, Adelaide, Nathan, Sobey. And I love his game. But he's starting to flop. It was an obvious flop. Have a look at this. That's a flop. And I reckon, and we want people to tweet in what their opinions are. And Polo Kennedy is a Melbourne journo that I respect his opinion a lot. He said, complete flop, minimum contact, didn't displace Sobey's position. That's exactly right. There wasn't enough contact for Sobey to fall down. Michael Aylen was standing, was it Michael?
I believe it was Michael.
Standing right there. And complete wrong call, and I reckon Michael just wanted to be able to get a big cheer. He didn't realise the cheer wasn't for him, it was for the call.
Well, it was a huge time in the game. Dave Barlow's 5th foul. Now, Dave Barlow is a big unit if he does run into you, but telling that and I think this is what came out in the tweet, and I really respect PK's opinion, but Dave Barlow made contact, didn't continue to move on. That not entering his cylinder was right there, and Sobey and the Adelaide 36ers are pretty happy about it, but Dave Barlow fouling out wasn't too fond of the call.
We need to stop it, especially coming into the playoffs. They're big games. We don't need to be able to get it done. And I understand the players are going to want to try and get a call, and if they continue to get rewarded like that, why wouldn't you do it? But it's not on him, it's on the referees to be able to say, get up. And we have seen, I want to stroke some of the referees, because there was a couple of times on the weekend where guys made the contact, guys flopped, and they allowed them just to lay it in right over their nose. And that's exactly what should happen. Play on. Get up.
That's what Dave Barlow did. So there you go. The campaign continues. If you see something you don't like, call it out. Hashtag stop the flop. Now, while we're talking about flop, do you want to make a comment on Dan Kickett and his little dancing and jumping about?
That was interesting, wasn't it? That was interesting, because he's gone at Golding. And if I'm Golding, I'm taking that.
Former Melbourne United teammates.
I said it on the call. I'm like, and they, I think it was Brad. Brad said to me, "Well, what would you do if he was doing that to you?" And I'm saying, mate, I'm going to kick it. You want to talk about flopping, mate? I'm going to go at you on rebounds. I'm going to go on you on your defense, and I'm going to call for pick and rolls and say, big fella, defend this every time you want to talk about me flopping. See whether you can defend this. He got personal.
Very personal, and I don't think you want to be guarding Chris Golding in a pick and roll. He was a killer down the stretch against Adelaide.
But they did get the last laugh, the Sydney Kings. They were on song, and they gave it to Melbourne. First time this year.
Well, not the last one, because I think there's some big finals games coming out. Wouldn't that be great if that was a grand final preview Friday night, Melbourne and Sydney? It may be. We'll find out in a few weeks' time. Hashtag stop the flop. The business end of the season, last round coming up for the NBL, so everyone's starting to talk awards. We've talked awards on this show, but the big award is the MVP trophy. There's a short list of 20, which is not that short, but if you shorten it down, there's a handful of candidates that are around the mark. Bryce Cotton, Andrew Bogut, Casper Ware, Nick Kay, Lamar Patterson, Romello Trimble. Who do you see as the man to take it out?
Mate, I've got three. I've been saying three for a while now. Bryce Cotton, Andrew Bogut, Casper Ware. All right? They're the three.
All right.
And I'm going to make a case for each of those. I'm going to argue for, because I would have no complaints with any of those three winning. Anyone else? Not happy for those three. So I'm going to give my case first.
Well, okay, well, I'll go on to you. Best player on each of the top three teams, so I like it. Let's go with the case for Bryce Cotton.
Well, Bryce Cotton averages 22.7 points per game. He's a star. And we saw it yesterday for him to be able to come up with so many points. 27 points after laying an egg in the first half, 27 points. That's a game winner. That's an MVP. And when I look at his team, they've got good role players, but they don't have many superstars. Nicholas Kay is a good role player. That's what he is. He's a good role player. But he has done it, and he's done it in big games. So for me, there is a serious argument that Bryce Cotton could be this year's MVP.
All your friends in Perth will be very excited about that, but I think you're going to make an equally strong case for the other two. Let's go with Sydney Kings, Andrew Bogut.
Well, Andrew Bogut has been obviously a sensation. He's averaged 11.6 points, 11.8 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 2.7 blocks. Sydney's won 6 more games than they did last year. Okay, the most wins since 2008. Last year they were ranked the third worst defensive team. This year they're the second best. So to me, the influence that Andrew Bogut has had, not just statistically, but what he's done for his overall team and their success. And none of those stats even take into account how many shots he's actually made people adjust, and they've thrown up rubbish because they know the big fella's there to be able to throw it back out. Every
chance he will be the Defensive Player of the Year as well. So very strong case.
Give it to him, mate. He is the Defensive Player of the Year.
Put his name on the trophy. There's the case for Andrew Bogut. And finally, the closer from Melbourne United, who's elevated his game to another level this season. Tell me the case for Casper Ware.
Well, Casper Ware's a superstar, no doubt about it. Now, he might not have some of the numbers. He averages 19.2 points, career best 4.9 assists. He's obviously proven himself in past years. He makes his team better. For me, he's the best two-way guard that we've got in the NBL. And I don't think that's even close. And he too is happy just to be able to sit back, take his time, distribute to other people, and when it's time to be able to put the foot on the accelerator, he just goes bang, makes big shots and carries his team to victory, and I think he's going to be able to do it again.
Very strong case for all three. I'm sure your seat in the fence is really comfortable. Do you want to go out on a limb and just call one?
No, I think they're all deserving.
Joint award?
Yep.
Well, there you go. That's the case for the top three in the MVP. Now, while we talk MVP, the voting is different this season. So you're saying it could be all three. They could tie because it's a case that's voted very differently this season between the coaches and the captains.
It certainly is. And I guess the questions that I've got around this and the changes that have been made is when's the cut-off time? Because the award's on Sunday night. So I'm hoping...
Last game Sunday afternoon, Perth and Melbourne.
And then the awards night is straight then. So I'm hoping that all of the captains and the coaches put their votes in right after that last game. Because if they're putting it in this week and we're missing out on that last round, then there's something seriously wrong. That needs to change.
Well, there's every chance that's a game playing for top position, so you think
if Bryce
the MVP
Cotton has 27
through.
points in the second half of a game on Sunday night, that could sway somebody's opinion about who they think is the MVP of the league. So you've got to have the whole season, and I hope that's the case.
Are the coaches and captains the best player? I asked you this in the call on the game Saturday night. Is there open to personal bias? Because these guys are going to war against each other week in, week out. Is there someone better to call it? I wonder whether the media and the commentary team are less likely to have a bias. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that there could be bias, and I think the one way to be able to get through that is to be able to... We know who they vote for. I think we should see, as the fans, who the coaches and the captains vote. So for any of those three that it could be, let's say, it doesn't matter whether you talk about Andrew Gaze or Vickerman or Gleeson. If Gleeson wants his man Bryce Cotton to win it, he might vote for Trimble. So that might be, conspiracies and everything else. But I think that if we all knew who they voted for, I think it just keeps everybody accountable for their vote, and I think that would be a fair system, and it'll make it really interesting as well.
Well, I like it as well. As a basketball fan, I think I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of you watching out there would actually really love to see who votes for who.
Do you reckon the Perth fans will say, oh, you said Trevor Gleeson, it was about Perth. Why did you pick on Perth? You could have used Andrew Gaze, but you didn't say Andrew Gaze.
You're just trying to make more friends in Perth, aren't you?
Do you reckon that's what they'll say? Oh, everyone's against us.
I don't think... I think
it's in the water over there. It's in the water.
They're very good on Sunday night.
We don't care what happens over there. No one really cares.
I tell you what, whoever wins is very much deserving of that Andrew Gaze trophy, and I cannot wait to Sunday night to see who takes out those regular season awards. That's Shane Heal's opinion on the MVP vote. It's down to a race between three. What a round of NBL we have coming up to decide who might finally get over the line. We're now excited to continue with part 3 of Alcatel In Depth. A few weeks ago, Shane, you caught up with Sydney Kings GM of basketball, Jeff Van Groningen. Listen in, he talks about the Next Stars program. He talks about how the G League has changed recruiting imports for the NBL. Must watch, have a look.
All right, this talk imports, because when we're in the media we demand for changes sometimes if things aren't going right, but things have changed with the rules as well. When you're making a change, it's harder to get somebody out of the G League now.
Really a lot harder in the last couple of years, and it's not been an accident by the NBA. They're a smart, savvy organisation. They saw a lot of their best G League players, which are a heartbeat away from being pulled into the NBA at any given time. And they saw those G League players
going. Saw that with Mitch Creek.
Absolutely.
Just this week.
That's right. So they saw those players leaking out to Turkey and Germany, and to a lesser extent at times Australia and China. And they didn't want to let the G League guys get plundered during the season in the same way as it had been happening in the past. So they've brought in a buyout. So at this point in the season, in fact the whole season, if you want to go and get player X out of the G League right now, bring him in for the last 10 games, costs you close to 50 grand Australian. So a lot of people don't understand that. So even to bring in a guy late, fans may rightly say it couldn't cost him too much to just put him on a 2-month contract. It's not what you're paying them as the salary. It's what you're paying to the Minnesota Timberwolves organisation or Charlotte organisation to actually get them out of their affiliated team. So that has changed things dramatically.
Yep. Next Stars, you guys have done a great job, and we pumped you up on this show about the work you did to get Brian Bowen, because let's face it, he was put out to the league, but you guys were a couple of months ahead as far as recruiting him, putting the time in to be able to make sure what in essence is a free player.
Yeah, so when the late May general managers meeting of all the GMs in the league was held, and Jeremy Lowliger, who does a great job with this innovative program, Next Stars, he told us back in late May, look, we are bringing a program in as of now, where if you can go and get a nominated college or high school level player that has a real draft prospect, has a decent chance of being drafted in the first round, you can get that player with our consent, and we will actually bring him into a league structure called Next Stars. We'll actually put a contract over him, and we'll effectively try to do as a league what happened with Terence Ferguson the year before, but we'll do it in a coordinated and timely manner. And that was announced in late May, and I think 3 weeks later I was in the States looking for a player. That's what we're supposed to do, and I felt like the chance to get a player of the standing of Brian Bowen, and there were others that were on my list, my internal list, was too good to refuse, so we went and got Brian Bowen. And you're right, the league then put out the overall list of which Brian Bowen was on there to say, look, these guys are players that you could potentially get. So that was circulated around the league, and we couldn't sign Bowen until that had been offered to every club. But by then we'd had a pretty good understanding of Bowen. We'd spent a lot of time with him and his agent, and I'd spent most of Summer League with his agent, who happens to be Dante Exum's agent as well, so was very big on Australia, and so that helped us.
Were you surprised at the lack of competition, though, once it actually went out?
I wasn't disappointed by it, because I was happy to get the player.
Free player.
Yeah, well, we do contribute some cost to him, and I think it's a really good. But you're right, the contract is an NBL contract, and look, I think it's a terrific program. That's the bottom line. I think that teams probably will do it in the future. I've certainly got some players in mind for next year.
Can we have 9 next year? Do you think that's capable?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would be great for the league if you had 9, and be great. And wouldn't it be great if 4 or 5 of them got drafted? Realistically, like
big time,
it would be huge. And that's what Jeremy and Larry really tried to do with this program. I applaud the program. People will say that's because we got Bowen, but if somebody else got Bowen and Bowen got drafted, it's good for our league, and it's good for what happens the next year when we try to get a player like that.
And the fact that you guys have got him will make it more value for other players to see it as well. And Ferguson's, exactly the same. Let's talk expansion. Obviously, with Phoenix coming in next year, fantastic. That was the place that had to go. The heartland of basketball, we know that. He's in that area. What's next? Where do you think? Obviously, the league's going to do, their due diligence, but where do you reckon?
Well, I think there's probably 2 levels to this. I think there's clubs that are ready and legitimately ready, like Hobart, who can make a really good case. They play out of a centre that's capable of hosting NBL games, has in the past. They've got real support base. They've got themselves together. They've got political people behind them. That's great. But then there's what the league really is critically interested in, which is the TV audience.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking at it and saying, does Hobart versus Cairns, or Hobart versus Illawarra, for example, not to be unkind, but other than in Hobart and Illawarra, no one's probably watching that game as much.
Apart from the real fans.
The real fans are going to do that. I don't
miss a game.
No, and me too. But it's not
there's not enough of us.
It's not you and I that are trying to convert.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the football fans and it's the theatre going people that we need to get over.
So what's going to change?
Well, I think big cities. I still think that maybe one of your old teams, Geelong. It's close to Melbourne, but it's not Melbourne. We've got Phoenix on the other side. Maybe a Geelong if they wanted to get ready.
Supercats, bring them back.
Bring back the Supercats.
What about in Perth? They're getting 13,000 people.
I think you'd have some serious resistance from the Wildcats.
Who cares what the Wildcats? They're going to say that.
Well,
the city surely is big enough for 2.
Well, I'd like it.
Do you think it can?
I think it could sustain it.
But people 13,000 people and then not think that it's big enough to have another team.
Yeah, no,
it has to be.
The rivalry between 2 teams in cities can work and will work.
Have a look at the AFL codes. It does work. We'll see that in Melbourne. Those rivalries are fantastic. And sometimes there's always going to be teams protecting their own little bit of turf. But that's why we've got governing bodies to be able to say, well, we don't care about you doing this. It's about the bigger picture, right?
That's true.
But we could say the same with the Kings, right?
Well, you can. Sydney's huge, and a lot of people would probably like that. But again, 3 years ago when Harvey Lister came in and brought the Sydney Kings back from a tough situation financially, I think that he would make a really strong argument that right now we need to consolidate that, and I think that's a very good argument. The other one that would be interesting would be New Zealand. With New Zealand, is it a big enough nation with the 2 islands to do something? Because it would certainly make that trip across to New Zealand more of a viable trip. And
I think it is, but then you got the same argument, don't you, with TV.
Yep.
I think the other thing, though, to be able to say about the Sydney Kings argument and Harvey is that the league's a lot different now, 3 years later, because of the great work like Harvey coming in. What Larry's done and Jeremy's done to be able to build it makes it more attractive for legitimate owners to come in and grow it as well.
No, I think so, and I think the point is good. I actually think that 10, I'm not sure what number you have in your mind, but I think 10 in this league is about right. I think we've had times in the past where we've had 14 and a baker's dozen and things like that, but I think 10's about right.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because I don't think you can put an exact number on it, because it depends on the calibre of owner that you can bring in and what their vision is and whether it does fit into the TV audience. Because at the end of the day, you've hit the nail on the head. Unless it works with TV, it's really difficult to be able to grow. So all of the clubs in the league makes money.
Well, you're hoping that the TV product gains, and I think it is making real inroads. I think Fox and Nine and everything that you guys are doing in terms of the game coverage is very professional. Now we need people to start watching that and getting used to the NBL being truly professional. I think it's huge credit to Larry Kesselman, Jeremy Lowliger, who've really built this up into a professional product. The difference, or the next step now, is really about getting the audiences so that they can go into the negotiating table and say, right, this is now worth this.
Yep. Good stuff, mate. Well, we could talk all day, but we don't have the time. We appreciate the fact that you've come in and shared your knowledge of how things work, and good stuff. Thanks, mate. Good luck for the playoffs.
Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
As with the other two parts, great stuff there, Shane. Very good to have Jeff Van Groningen for Alcatel in depth.
Yeah, great access, and I really enjoy listening to how general managers think and the strategies behind it, and well done on that Next Stars program from the NBL and the Sydney Kings taking advantage.
Wouldn't it be great if we had one per team next season, 9 young Americans in the league? It'd be great. And open invite to any other GMs to come and join us here at throwbackstore.com.au. Vince Crivelli from Melbourne United.
Come on, Vince. I might put him maybe not under the hammer. I might crunch time maybe.
A little crunch time.
Good.
Vince would be very, very good. Any of the other GMs, more than welcome any time. It is now time to move into the ultimate round of the minor season for the NBL. Round 18 coming up. It's time for the Unibet game preview. Now, before we get underway, thanks Dan Ewing for taking my poke last week. You called Melbourne against Sydney. Dan, on my advice, called for Sydney, and the Sydney Kings got it done Friday night. So poke time.
Not for you, mate. Oh, mate, I'm getting poked by Dan Ewing. Everyone wants to get poked by Dan Ewing, don't they?
We talked about this off camera.
I'm not.
You're a brave man.
I'm not, mate.
Have you seen the size of his guns?
He's got some guns, but mate, it's all soft. He'd be all soft.
Dan was on the phone to me today giving specific instructions how hard to poke hammer.
Bring it on, mate. Bring it on. All right, what do we got?
All right, you're going to get it one. Dan, come on in anytime you like. Give it a big poke. He deserves it. Unibet game preview. New Zealand hosting Illawarra.
They absolutely crushed Illawarra only a few days ago this weekend, and they'll get their confidence, not playing for much, but they want to get their stats up. There was a few guys there that were very happy to get their stats up on the weekend for the New Zealand Breakers, and I'm going to pick them 11 plus. I think the Hawks have got their tail between their legs.
New Zealand in New Zealand. Melbourne.
Feathers. The Hawks. Feathers between their legs.
Feathers between their legs.
Plus.
It's quite funny. Melbourne hosting Cairns after a big win against Adelaide.
Melbourne 11 plus. They're going to be all serious business right now, and they're going to be, no doubt in the back of their mind, they're going to be thinking about Perth, but they will crush Cairns.
Trimble versus Ware. That'll be a match-up to watch. Margin there, 11 plus.
11 plus.
Perth hosting Adelaide, in Adelaide attempting to just lock in a final spot.
I'm going to go with an upset.
What's an upset in this?
Adelaide. I'm going to go with Adelaide. Of course that's an upset. They're going to be the underdogs. You have a look at what the odds will be. They'll be the underdogs. So I'm going to go 1 to 10. And I think they're going to go over there with an attitude, and they're going to have to take the win. They know they have to take it. Perth won't give you anything, but I'm going for Adelaide 1 to 10.
Yeah, Perth playing to lock in top spots. So I'll just go with Perth there, and you can get a poke from me and Dan Ewing next week. Wildcats at home. They were incredible getting that win against Sydney. Tough road trip there for the 36ers. Sydney hosting Cairns. top spot out of the question now for the Kings, but they're going to want to get some wins, go after second.
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, they could be, as you say, playing for home court advantage, so that would be massive. They need a big win at home. That one the other day against the Perth Wildcats was the first big win they've really had for, well, all year, really, at home. So I think they'll win 11 plus. They're going to be pretty focused as well. Their defence was great. The first 3 quarters, the Sydney Kings in Perth was fantastic last week.
Big win at home against Melbourne you're talking about the other day.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said Perth, but that's all right. Just want to make sure we're across that.
They got crushed by Perth.
Yeah, that's okay. Very impressive win against Melbourne. They'll be big against Cairns. Brisbane hosting New Zealand. If the 36ers lose to Perth, Brisbane will be playing for a playoff spot against New Zealand.
Well, I can't pick Brisbane. They've been so disappointing. I'll put them under the hammer.
Regardless of the Adelaide-Perth result?
I can't pick Brisbane. I just can't pick them. Like, not with the effort that they came out with the other day. They'll probably win. They should win. They should have beaten Cairns. They should have won more than 1 out of their last 6. But I can't pick them.
Margin?
Let's go New Zealand 1-10.
Okay, and then finally, what a game to end the season. Potentially the winner playing for top spot. Melbourne hosting the Perth Wildcats.
I can't wait to see this. Melbourne get this win in the last game of the season to be able to get top spot.
Have you got
11 plus? I think they'll give it to Perth. They don't have enough.
Have you got something against Perth and the Wildcats?
Oh, are you Western Australian? Are you?
I'm not. Just asking the question.
You always hate us.
Just asking the question. Melbourne 11 plus. The call from Hammer. The awards night still to follow. Now NBA going
into... And the good thing is about the awards night is the NBL made it so then Perth could be there, so then they would actually attend. Is that right?
Shane, what have you got against Perth?
No, I'm stating the facts. That game was put as the last game of the season, so Perth would be there and wouldn't have to fly in or anything, and it was there so then they could attend. Because last year, Bryce Cotton wasn't at the awards night, which was a real shame.
He may well need to be there this year, could well go back-to-back MVP. As we move into the NBA All-Star Weekend coming up, surely you want to talk about team selections, Team Giannis, Team LeBron?
I have absolutely no interest in All-Star Weekend. I will not even watch it. I might watch a few highlights, but it bores me. It really does. It's rubbish.
Okay,
when are they going to play? I would love to see them play properly. When are they going to play properly? It's just rubbish. It is. You like it?
It's fun seeing them all get together.
Okay, yeah.
It's a bit of a... I like watching
fluff. You like that fluff.
I like watching the Harlem Globetrotters too. So put it in that sort of a category. Well, not much to follow there in the NBA, but what a round of NBL. All the hot tips. He's done pretty well lately, apart from that one we got a poke on him for. That is all the hot tips from Shane Hill in the Unibet game preview. What a week in basketball, and now it's time to hit on the hottest topics, the starting 5, the biggest 5 topics in hoops, and there is a lot going on. Let's go through them quickly on the clock. Shane, the Hammer Hill. First of all, looking at the NBL, when was the last time a finals place and finals positions, i.e. top spot, could be decided with the last game of the season?
And how good is that? So good. The games have been amazing quality, incredible. It was 2010, and it was the Wildcats playing in that game against the Crocs. Wildcats won. They stayed at first. Crocs went to third. Wildcats went on and won a championship. Let's see what happens this week.
That's very good. That's top spot being decided between Melbourne and Perth. Obviously, finals places sometimes decided, but top spot's going to be a cracker last game. Moving to NBA, a lot of people talking about trading needs to happen in the NBL, and the NBA we've just gone through trade week. Harrison's Barnes traded mid-game, subbed out of the game, told, sorry Harrison, you're now no longer part of the organisation.
Quarter, wasn't it? It was the fourth quarter. He's playing. All of a sudden, they sub him off, takes a seat. You've been traded on your bike. I think he went to Sacramento, I think. And he wanted to go back on.
Well, a lot of talk about how professional he is, he wanted to keep playing, but he can't play anymore because he's no longer their player.
You're done, mate. You've got to get off. But life in the NBA, this is exactly how it works. It's amazing.
It is a brutal business. Now, very disappointed. We have no donuts tonight. We thought Bryce Cotton was going to be the man to provide some up to half-time. Then he decided to flick the switch and break your record for the most points in a half. 27 in the second half to go and get it done for Perth against Sydney.
What do I have?
Less than 27.
I had 26, but I had 11 assists. How many assists did he have? The stat man, he is unbelievable. He gave me the heads up to say, mate, your record got beaten. But he was incredible, Bryce Cotton. He really was. I had a barbecue going, people over, watching the game, and it just put on a show. Tough thing to do is to have a donut and get that many points in the second, in a big game.
I don't think he had that many assists. He definitely didn't have that much peroxide in his hair either.
He's definitely
No peroxide for him.
definitely, mate. Just straight on the scalp.
27 points was very good. It's going to be a great final round. Speaking of final games, Alex Loughton played his last home game. Greg Hire announced his retirement. Two of the all-time gentlemen in the NBL. Great guys on and off the field.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. It's court. They put it on the court.
Yeah.
Incredible though. What both those guys have done, and obviously, you know, Loughton had bigger numbers in the early stage of his career, but played a really valuable role. Greg Hire as well, one of the tough guys, but one of the nice guys, and what he's doing off the court is fantastic, and no doubt he's going to continue on and contribute back to the community. And congratulations to you both for what you've done for the NBL.
And just a special shout out to Lousy for the Lousy out mic drop on his last home game. Very nice point at the end of the game. Couldn't script it better. Now, we usually put you on the clock for the starting five, but I'm just going to... The shot clock's broken. I'm going to give you a little bit longer on this because I really want to hear from you, because Twitter's been lighting up this week.
Been active this week.
It's been...
Tell us what you think.
Just been getting all around my news feed. Just keep them coming at Hammer. You got some thoughts against Perth. Yourself and Tim Gossage, well-known, long-time Perth... Tim Gossage is well known over in the West. He's a Perth media personality, does a bit on SEN in Melbourne as well. You've said here he reads the news with his pom-poms on.
I said that.
Is that Director Dave?
Director Dave who said
Someone's
that.
telling...
I think he's right. It's hard tweeting, mate, with your pom-poms. That's tough. You got to give credit when credit's due. Don't say I'm not positive about the Wildcats. But this is what I wrote, so you make your decision. Whilst I picked the Wildcats to win today, I don't think they'll win the title. They might, but I stand by my thoughts. They are one impact player or a quality player short. That's my thoughts. They've done well. I've stroked them all year, but I think they're one player short. This is one of the responses that I think typifies it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what sport, the Eastern Staters can't stand to see a trophy, get on a plane and head west. Can you imagine the uproar if the Glory and the Wildcats all win? Poor people will have nothing left. Are you serious?
Don't leave that name off. Who sent that in?
Brennan Carlisle, is it? Oh,
Okay.
Brennan, you need to get a life, mate, because over here we don't think about the West that much. I know in the West you think everyone does, but it just doesn't work like that. But keep up the good work.
What? My concern
Why
is...
are they saying I'm hating? From that tweet, how do you get that I hate the Wildcats from that tweet? I picked them to beat the Sydney Kings.
Yeah, I'm happy to call you out when it's due,
Okay.
but I think you're not... I don't think you're actually having a go at Perth. You're just calling it how you see it with their lineup, but you've said the same about Sydney and their lineup.
Sydney are lacking a four-man and should have got an athletic four-man from the very start, mate.
Yeah, so you've called people out as you go. You and Tim went back and forth a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I just got a good block.
Just check it out. It's worth following. Worth following the conversation. Now, you did get another one as well about that you should give your opinion. You should be held to the same standard as the players and referees.
I mean, that person's just kidding themselves, aren't they? And they tweeted it in, and it was Puppy Dad. And to you, Puppy, imagine if one of the coaches or the players tweeted this. Why aren't the commentators held to the same standard? Well, I don't work for the NBL. I'm not paid by the NBL. I don't sign an NBL contract. I'm a commentator. I'm paid to give my opinion. I do it without bias. I don't barrack for anybody, even though I played for teams. It's the way it works. And that's what we're meant to be able to do. That's silly. That's just, come on, mate. Wake up to yourself, Puppy.
And fuck up yourself, Puffy. And that's why we like it. We like the strong opinions. We like your strong opinions too. So come back at Shane on Twitter or whatever your social media of choice is. But that, we feel, is the 5 hottest topics this week. That is the starting 5. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Shane's booked himself on a flight to call some finals games in Perth because all the Perth fans are going to be after him now. You've just joined Corey Homicide as public enemy number 1.
Put all that aside. I say what I think. How good has the basketball been? This weekend, I cannot wait for some more quality games. There was so many good games last week, and we are just heading to the top coming into the playoffs. That game on Sunday is going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Oh, not just the game on Sunday. Top spot still to be decided. The playoff spot still alive between Adelaide and Brisbane. WNBL Grand Final going on and NBA All-Star Weekend, if that's your thing, coming around too. There's a lot happening in basketball, and we love that we get to talk about it, and we get to do that. Thank you.
Finally, Director Dave got me a real hammer.
Someone needed to do it. We get to do that thanks all to our friends that make it possible to be here. So big shout out to Unibet Follow their tips from Shane if you want to stay on the best ones this weekend. Alcatel, best phones in the business. If you want a phone, send in your vision. Be our next Alcatel superstar. And also thanks to the Daily Telegraph and all their sister publications all around the nation. There might be one over in Perth that might be getting around something you said there today. Who knows? And thanks to the throwbackstore.com.au for having us here. I'm Nathan Stremple, Shane the Hammer Hill. Big week in hoops coming up.
See you next week.